Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Casting Views, the podcast that usually takes a topic each week and, as the name suggests, cast views. Now, I say usually because this is a different episode. This is the third Podiversary of Casting Views. So I thought I'd take time out just to do a very different episode, a shorter episode to talk about the pod, where the last year has taken me, where maybe the next year might take me, and to say some thanks to some very special people. Yeah, the podcast debuted on the 19th September 2021, and here we are 3 years later. So before I start going into some of the personal thanks and other things of this episode, what has the last year seen? So if I've worked this out right, it's seen 67 brand new episodes recorded and scheduled out there, and partnered with a number of people as part of those. So hopefully I've captured everyone. If you're missing here, tag me in social media, tag me on social media, let me know. But again, I think I've captured everyone who's appeared on this since September last year. So Justin Henson, who I'll talk about later. We've got Dan S from Just Football, who's been in one of my sub-series. I'll talk about him as well later. Matt and Adam from Decaying with the Boys have been on. Josh from Talking Smack. All the chaps over at the Game Club Pod, so Slade, Joey, Tim and Alex have been on. Leo Allen, Jason from the It's Not That Bad podcast, Jay from the Oki Bookcast, Caesar from the No on 15 Allcast, Satsu from Chat Tsunami, J and K of the F My Work Life podcast, Karen and Ann of the Sugar Coated Murder podcast, Antonio Palacios of the Cultworthy and Back to the Balcony, Seismic Cinema, Sean from Review It Yourself, Two Blokes from Blighty. It's a bit of a cheat, that one, because they are part of the Game Club Pod, but I love that podcast as an entity. So there you go. You get your separate shout out. My mate Pete. Hi, Pete. And Michael from the I Don't Have a Nose YouTube channel, and Griffin from the Reboot Deboot podcast. So yeah, they've all been on, and a number of those have been first time appearances. So thank you for taking the time out, all of you, to appear on Casting Views. So what else? There's been a number of mini-series bedded in. So I want to take time out as well just to talk about these, because I love each and every one of these for different reasons. But the first one I want to talk about is Casting Reflections on Black Mirror. So this was done with a friend of mine, Dan S. What we did was we looked at each episode of the show Black Mirror. We took each episode of the show Black Mirror. We did a recap of what happened in that episode, and then ultimately we would just talk about it. We would see, are there any signs of what they were saying in that show in real life now? Or if it was one of these completely, utterly fantastical episodes, how would we react if that was the reality? And it threw up a lot of interesting conversation. Yeah, so I just want to say thank you to Dan for that. And I can't wait till, I think it's 2025, when the new series of Black Mirror drops. So we've got another set of episodes that we can do for that. So yeah, please do check out Casting Reflections on Black Mirror. Who's Coming to Dinner? Now, this technically started before September, and I'll say why technically. So I needed to do a show at short notice. Didn't have anything planned. Spoke to Antonio. He agreed to come on. I said, can I get you on to do that classic subject of throwing a dinner party and what you would eat and who you would invite? And having him on and doing that made me realize that I actually really enjoy just talking to a podcasters in a normal one-to-one way. And what I mean by normal is not having one of these bizarre subjects like unusual laws or amazing coincidences or funny sports and competitions. It was an opportunity to speak to a podcaster and find out a little bit more about them. So that has now become a regular monthly episode. So it features the end of the last Sunday of every month. And yeah, it's a fantastic show. I get so many great ideas for recipes. It makes me feel hungry at the end of each episode. If you're interested in finding out what podcasters want to eat and who they want to invite round for dinner, do check out my Who's Coming to Dinner episodes. The next sub-series is called Mind Wipe, and that's, I'll say, fairly new, but it's been running for a while. And again, at the moment, it's monthly. And its origin story actually involves Slade from the Game Club Pod. Now, it's a subject I'd been thinking of a format for a while, but never really then progressed with it. But one day, Slade messaged myself and Josh Scar from Talking Smack saying, Hey guys, I've got an idea for an episode, but it doesn't fit the Game Club pod. So it might be suitable for one of you two. And he mentioned it, and ultimately it's a mind wipe format. And I remember reading it at the time thinking, I really want to do that because I said it's something I'd had buzzing around in my mind for a while. When he laid it out like that, I thought, I really want to do that. But being someone who absolutely loves Josh Scar and the Talking Smack podcast, I thought, no, don't jump in. Don't be that guy. So I said, oh, Josh, yeah, that sounds good. Do you fancy it? Let him have first refusal. And again, Josh kindly said no, it probably didn't fit his format. So I quickly took it and run with it and haven't looked back. And actually last month, Josh was on here doing the Mind Wipe episode and shared some brilliant stories. So again, it's an episode where I sit down with a podcaster and ask them to recount things from certain categories like games, films, sport, music that they'd love to experience, relive for the first time. Again, it's just a fascinating insight into the mind of a podcaster, and the podcast that you listen to each week, whether it's movies or games, it just helps you understand a little bit more about them and shows the personality behind the people that present that to you. So again, I absolutely love this series because again, it gives me the opportunity to talk to people, and hey, that's what this is all about, right? And the final sub-series is pilot views. So we've done a number of episodes of these now. So we've done Cheers, Frasier, The Office, Dexter, and Ozark. I think those are the ones that have aired up till now. We've recorded another one, but it's not coming out. I think it's coming out the week after this, or at least a couple of weeks. So I'm not going to say anything about that one. But ultimately, why it's called Pilot Views, the idea I had was we would take classic shows, take a look at the pilot, and delve into that. But we chose Cheers for the first one and both realised, we ended up watching the whole show. So it's evolved into still taking a look at the pilot, but we're then going to look at the final episode, have a look at, compare the two, see how it's changed, the evolution of characters, but also some highlights from the show in between. So it's a fascinating look about how a show can change over time. So before I talk about what's coming up and to thank specific groups of people, I thought I'd take a look again at notable events on this day in kind of thing. So I had a look at the 19th September throughout history and picked up some notable events. In 1838, Ephraim Morris was granted a US patent for a railroad brake. In 1849, the first commercial laundry established in Oakland, California. Over here in the UK in 1879, the Blackpool illuminations are switched on for the first time. In 1952, Adventures of Superman, starring George Reeves, premieres in syndication on US TV. In 1960, Chubby Checkers The Twist hits number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. In 1975, Fawlty Towers, starring John Cleese, premieres on BBC Two in the UK. And in 2022, scientists discover Amazon's tallest tree, standing at a height of 290 feet and 32 feet wide. And of course, I have to say, 2021 Casting Views was born. So what's coming up? Well, more of the same. And by that, I mean random topics each week. I'll continue to find fun and informative topics to talk about. I've got a whole list. I just need to convert them into episodes. But also there will continue to be the conversations with podcasters. So I'm going to keep doing Who's Coming to Dinner and Mind Wipe. Whether they're monthly or not, I don't know. But they will still feature. As long as people still want to come on them, I'll still be recording them. There's going to be more pilot views. Justin and I have still got a lot of shows we've got planned. So what I will say to you is if you're listening to this and you've got any ideas for it, please do let me know. But yeah, you're going to hear more of that. Now, again, it might not be monthly. You might see it appear 2 or 3 months in a row. You might see it disappear for a couple of months, but it's purely down to what we're watching, how much time we've got to watch it, and when we can get together to record. But we will continue to do more pilot views. I'm going to be doing a couple of theme months. I've got those planned. I'm hoping to get at least one of those in before the end of the year. But yeah, it's going to be the fun and or informative topics that you're used to hearing on here. But also, I've got another couple of sub-series planned. So I'm still working on those. Again, I'm not going to say what they are here, just I want to give myself the time to plan them out. But yeah, keep an eye out and an ear out for some new sub-series. So now I come to the most important bit of this episode, and that is thanking people. So Firstly, I want to say a huge thank you to every one of you that listens. You know, you think of an episode, you plan it out, you record it, you schedule it, and then you wait to release it. And when you see those listens come in for it, it's immensely brilliant feeling to see. So I appreciate each and every one of you for the time, you know, you take out of your day or your week to listen to this podcast. It means a huge amount to me. And yeah, I hope to keep repaying you for that, Faith, with some great episodes to come. So honestly, thank you very much for listening to the show. Outside of that, there's a group of people I need to thank. Firstly, I won't list them all again, but if you've appeared on the show in the last year specifically, but if you've appeared on the show at all in its duration of time, huge thank you. It means a lot. Again, like I said, you're taking time out of your schedule to come on to here and talk to me. And I love it, basically. You know, I really do enjoy bouncing off people. So thank you to all the podcasters who have taken the opportunity to be on here with me. But now I'm going to move on to two groups of people specifically. Firstly, the group that have been referenced on here and on their shows as affectionately the Brain Trust. So this was a group of podcasts who I fell in with right at the start of my journey. So this was right at the start of year one. And I think without them, I don't know if I'd still have been here by now, because the support and friendship they showed was hugely important at the start of this podcast. So in no particular order, you've got Antonio Palacios over at the Cultworthy, Justin Henson at the Movie Wire, Josh at Talking Smack, Karen and Anne at Sugar Coated Murder, J&K at the F My Work Life podcast, Josh and Amanda Wilson at Super Familiar with the Wilsons, Adam and Matt at Decaying with the Boys. The podcast is on hiatus, but they still deserve a shout out. And along with that, a couple more people whose podcasts are on hiatus. So you've got Brendan at Unchefed and Leo Allen, who's been a guest recently on here and, spoilers, is coming up here soon again. So thank you to all the above there. Now, the next group of people to talk about is the PodPack Collective. Now, I call this a new group, but technically it came into being in December last year, but went live, as it were, on the 1st of January this year. So the PodPack Collective is a group of podcasts where we are trying to promote positivity within the indie podcasting community, put together by Satsu from Chat Tsunami. Again, thank you to them, because the DM chat that we've got on Twitter, you know, ranges from the informative, the helpful, the support about certain questions. But sometimes you're having a bad day and you'll log in and one of them is, they're making you laugh or they're supporting you in only the way they know how. So at time of recording, the members I want to say hi to are Satsu at Chat Tsunami, Luke at the Nerdstalgic, Beth and Marie at the Two Girls, One Reusable Cup podcast, all the chaps at Seismic Cinema, the Stop, Drop and Roll Initiative, and Weird Horizon. And the final member of the PodPack Collective, but by no means least, the Game Club Pod. So hi to all of you there. And the last set of people, and again, these are people you'll have heard already mentioned before, but people who have had a massive input into the podcast in various ways. So firstly, the music you hear at the intro and outro of this podcast, that was done by Josh Wilson. And I've had this for probably a couple of years now, I think, and I'm going to continue to have it because I absolutely love both bits of music. So Josh, thank you very much for coming up with those unique pieces of music for me. Artwork. So the logo you see on social media and the default picture you'll see for my podcast was created by Antonio Palacios. So thank you again, Antonio, for coming up with that brilliant picture. So yep, that's his picture of me looking at you all when you're scrolling through your social media platforms. Justin Henson, now 9 times out of 10, if not 9.8 times out of 10. Again, I'm not a statistician, but it's around that high. The thumbnail you'll see for each episode was created by Justin, and it's just brilliant. You know, I'll send him a message. I'll say, Justin, I've got this idea for an episode. This is kind of the cover I want. Do you think you could do something? Dan, leave it with me, he says. And then a week later, I get a picture. I wake up, I've got a picture in my inbox, and it's just brilliant. You know, some of them, I keep saying that when I do stop doing this podcast, I'm going to stitch them all together, and that's going to be a poster up on my wall. So, yeah, a huge thank you for Justin. And Justin, thank you, because I know I hassle you a lot and I'm sending you commissions for weeks in advance now, but I really do appreciate it. So, cheers, buddy. Kate over at the F My World Life podcast as well. So she supported me a lot when I set up the merch shop. So she did some of the graphics for the merch I did. So a big thank you to Kay as well. And I know Satsu has also helped out on a couple of episodes, especially ones where I've done my crossover with him. And I can't go without also saying that in the last year, I've managed to meet a couple of podcasters as well. So I wanted to keep that to the end, because when you're doing this and you're talking to podcasters, especially on the other side of the world, it's a great feeling, but you never necessarily think you're going to meet. But I've had the opportunity now to meet 3. So I'll start with the first one because it was outside of the year, but I loved meeting him so much, and he's just a great guy. So I met Antonio Palacios. If you listen to this podcast regularly, you'll know that. So that was in March of last year. So outside the year. But yeah, I met him in Vegas, and brilliant guy. And it was so great to share a few drinks with him that night and have dinner with him. Then I think it was towards the end of last year, although this year has flown so quickly, Josh and Amanda Wilson from Super Familiar with the Wilsons came over to the UK, and I went down to London to meet them and spent the afternoon and early evening with them. So again, great to share a beer with Josh, and it was brilliant to finally meet up with him. And then just a couple of months ago in June, I was able to go to Seattle and I met Justin. So I spent a day with him. He surprised me and my wife with tickets to the theatre there. Then he surprised me again by showing up because he told me he wasn't going to be able to make it that night. It's a great feeling, as I said, talking to people, and when you can meet them, it's even better. Now, the irony is these are the podcasters that live the furthest away from me. So those of you that live closer, especially those in the UK, 2025, let's do it. So yeah, that's it really. Like I said, I know it's a slightly different episode, but it's really important for me to make sure that I take the opportunity, one, to recognise that, you know, this podcast has ticked another year on its age. But again, to make sure I give thanks to the people that have helped me get to where I am now, and also to you listening. So yeah, I think I'll leave it there. Hope you've enjoyed what I've had to say in this episode, and I'll see you next week for another episode of Casting Views.
1, 2, 3, 4. If I want your opinion, I will give it to you. Come on, check what we've got, 'cause you need it. Don't make